So I finally got my first completely negative 2-star review. It's weird to say that I have been wanting a strongly negative review for one of my books for a long time now, and I'm glad I finally joined the club. It's interesting. And I'm not going to say which book and I'm not going to say where this review was because that doesn't matter for this video. It's fine. It's fine. In fact, it's more than fine. It's perfectly okay. The review itself, I agree with half of it, and the other half of it was a clear personal bias on the part of the reviewer, both of which are okay. People are fine to have their own points of view that directly go against my points of view. That's what all this is about. And in terms of the more technical aspects, yeah, there are obviously places where I can improve, and having those called out in a very intense and clear manner is great. It wasn't a troll review. It was a thorough, in-depth, well thought out review. Negative, strongly negative, telling people not to buy the book, but it was thought out and written clearly by somebody who actually read the book. I couldn't ask for better. Well, obviously I could ask for better, but you know what I mean. One of the reasons I've always wanted a negative review is, one, I feel like it's kind of a badge of honor in a way, like it's part of a club, and now I get to join the club, so yay me. And the other part of this is this thing that we people make videos about. Now I can make this video kind of too, that you don't respond to reviews, negative or positive, but specifically you don't respond to negative reviews. And now I get why people do. Because when you read a negative review of your own work, there is a knee jerk reaction to engage with that. I made a thing, someone didn't like it. They say, here's why I didn't like it. And then the immediate conversational knee jerk reaction is, well, let me talk about this with you. Let's talk about this. I want to talk about your point here, or I want to address this issue, or I want to defend myself in some, or my work in some way, because I'm not my work, but you still feel a little bit of attachment to it, right? So I had that moment when I read through this review where I was like, I need to respond. And I remembered specifically because I've been on the indie book talk community for so long, and I've seen other authors talk about this over and over again. And I drilled it into my own skull from your experiences. You people have had experiences like this, and you have all universally said, don't respond, don't engage. Reviews are for readers, not for authors. And I had taken that advice on as a conceptual idea, like, okay, eventually someday I'm going to get a negative review, and I have to keep that in mind. And it happened, and I stopped myself from responding, and everything's good. In fact, I like this negative. I like negative reviews, especially ones that like they took the time and effort to read and, honestly review and bring some passion into it. Uh, the answer to a negative review, in my view, isn't to respond to the review. It's to write another book. That's the answer. Now, for this book, there may be further additions. Nothing's ever set in stone. Obviously, there's over time things can be improved, but the answer to any negative review is just to simply write the next book. And that's important for me. And it's very important for me to remember, because this novel that I'm working on is going to get a lot of negative reviews. Now, for those of you who don't know, my second novel takes place approximately 200,000 years ago. It's about two bumbling hunter-gatherers who wander into a Neanderthal civilization and accidentally muck things up. The reason I'm going to get a lot of negative reviews for this novel isn't necessarily the contents of the novel per se, but rather the how to say, I don't want to say political wrapping around it, but here's the problem. Any book that involves humans is a little bit about human nature, right? But if you take two human beings 200,000 years ago, literally about 200,000 years before the advent of civilization, you're not just making two human characters. What you're making is a commentary on human nature. It's unavoidable. You, there's no way for me to write about human beings hundreds of thousands of years ago and not have the average reader understand that what I'm talking about here is not just human characters, but also fundamental human nature. How do people interact with each other outside the confines of any type of civilization? What does that look like? And what is my commentary on what it means to be human and what basic human nature is? Those are inescapable elements of this dumb prehistory fantasy novel that I'm working on. And because of the nature of the setting, I have to open the novel with a fairly lengthy introduction to the concepts, the world, and all the related factors that your average reader has to know in order to make sense of the rest of the novel. Um, just because of the way that we are educated or not educated about our own prehistory, that's an inescapable part. And in that description of the setup of the world and the people, I have to make some very strong commentaries and assertions on humanity, what it means to be human, and etc. And in order to make these points, in order to make the rest of the novel work, I have to take a very strong and I would say somewhat rarefied view on humanity and human nature. So right out the gate for this next novel is going to be a fairly uh, hopefully short but intense diatribe and deconstruction about human nature and history and our decolonizing prehistory and all these sort of like very charged political and anthropological things. And then we get into the dumb story. So because of that, because I have to start this novel in a effectively political scree, um, before the story can start, I can already tell there's going to be a fairly sizable, hopefully not the majority of people, but there's going to be a sizable slice of my readers who aren't going to get past that opening introduction to the world and characters. They're going to read that part. They're going to find the ideas in it so upsetting and so counter to their knowledge of themselves and the world at large that they will most likely become livid um, in reading that introduction. So I am bracing myself for what will, I am sure, inevitably be a hopefully small but um, noticeable negative reviews for my second book. And I haven't even finished writing it yet. So, all of this to say that this is great. I've always wanted a strongly negative review of one of my books. I got one, and in terms of strongly negative reviews, it's well thought out and clearly written by a person who read the book. And parts of it have been helpful for my own writing in the future. Um, a part of it is going to be attractive to people who might find what that reviewer didn't like. They're going to see that and they're going to say, "Oh, well, maybe I am interested in this." And more to the point, this is just part of the business. And I'm surprised it took me this long to get such a negative review. But I'm not upset. Nobody needs to do anything. You don't need to find it. It's fine. I just thought I would celebrate that with my community that I finally did it. I finally made somebody upset. And to tie it into my next project, look forward to a lot more people being very upset with what I write. So, hope everyone's having a good day. I got some bigger news coming tomorrow, but yeah, hope everyone's doing well.